The birthday party was already in full swing when I arrived, clutching the carefully wrapped gift I had spent too much money on. The air inside my sister's house was thick with the clinking of glasses, bursts of laughter, and the low thrum of background music. 30 people, maybe more, scattered across the living room, kitchen, and hallway. It felt like walking into someone else's celebration, not my niece's, not really mine. I spotted Emma first. My 13-year-old niece, her blonde hair cascading down her shoulders, eyes glued to her brand new phone, the one I had just bought her. She didn't even look up as I walked in her fingers, delicately peeling away the last sliver of plastic from the $900 phone. Her lips twisted into a half smile, the kind that comes when you've been handed exactly what you wanted without a single thank you. Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. She giggled, tapping away at her screen. The words cut through the noise, clear as a bell, her voice light but sharp. A few heads turned, smirks flickering across faces, and then the room rippled with muffled laughter like a stone breaking the surface of a still pond. I felt my pulse spike, the heat rising to my cheeks, but I forced a tight-lipped smile, the kind that hides 1,000 unsaid words. My sister Sarah leaned against the kitchen counter, wine glass in hand, pretending not to hear, but the slight upturn of her lips gave her away. She caught my eye for a fleeting moment before turning her attention back to her conversation. Her posture relaxed, her smile smug. My parents, seated on the far side of the living room, exchanged a quick glance. Dad muttered something to Mom, his shoulders shaking with a quiet chuckle. "Hey, thanks for the phone, Uncle," Emma chirped, her eyes never leaving the screen, her words as casual as a passing breeze. I nodded, the same reflexive motion I'd perfected over the years, the silent, unspoken agreement to let things slide to keep the peace. But this time it felt heavier, like a chain tightening around my chest. I drifted to the kitchen, the hum of conversations blending into a meaningless buzz. The countertops were cluttered with half-empty plates and spilled drinks, the sink overflowing with dirty dishes. A stark contrast to the polished facade my family liked to present. I leaned against the counter, gripping the edge until my knuckles whitened, staring at the flickering candle on the birthday cake that no one seemed eager to light. Memories flickered through my mind, the endless favors, the late-night pickups, the emergency loans, the phone calls that always ended in, "Thanks, you're a lifesaver." I had been their safety net for years, the one they leaned on without hesitation, but dismissed just as easily. My sister's casual disregard, my parents' passive snickers, even Emma's careless jab, all piled up like bricks in the walls I had let them build around me. I felt the phone in my pocket, my thumb grazing the cool glass of the screen. Just 2 taps. That's all it would take. 2 taps to undo years of silent sacrifices. My bank app opened smoothly, the familiar numbers flickering on the screen, accounts linked to credit cards, subscriptions, utilities, the financial lifelines I had extended to this ungrateful circus of a family. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. The chatter from the living room rose in a wave, laughter spilling into the kitchen, drowning out the whispered doubts in my mind. Then a familiar, bitter voice cut through the noise, Sarah's wine-soaked tone rising above the rest. "He's always been the soft one, you know, can't say no to family. Too nice for his own good." That did it. I tapped twice, my heart pounding like a hammer against my ribs. Instantly, the screen confirmed my actions. Accounts disconnected, payments stopped, lines severed. Years of thankless giving erased with a flick of my thumb. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, the chill of the kitchen tiles seeping through my shoes as the weight on my chest slowly lifted, replaced by a cold, simmering resolve. I took a deep breath, the air sharp and cleansing, and turned back to the chaos of the party. They still hadn't noticed, still lost in their conversations, their laughter, their careless, consuming self-interest. I pushed off the counter, grabbed my jacket from the back of a chair, and headed for the door, weaving through the crowd without a single goodbye. As I stepped out into the crisp night, the cool air hit my face, the darkness wrapping around me like a long, forgotten comfort. I paused at the edge of the driveway, my car, a silent sentinel, waiting in the shadows. I took one last look at the house, the windows glowing with the warmth of a family, that had long since grown cold to me. "They won't even notice," I whispered, my breath misting in the cool air. Then, without a backward glance, I slipped into the driver's seat, the engine growling to life as I pulled away, the house growing smaller in my rearview mirror until it was just another blurred light in the distance. For the first time in years, I felt free. I didn't go straight home that night. Instead, I drove for hours, the city lights streaking past like blurred memories I was finally willing to leave behind. My mind raced, replaying every slight, every dismissive glance, every snide comment that had piled up over the years. The countless sacrifices I had made, the steady drip of my time, money, and energy, all casually taken and just as casually forgotten. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner, the adrenaline had faded, replaced by a hollow, unsettling calm. I ordered a coffee, the harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as I sat alone in the corner booth, the cold vinyl seat creaking beneath me. I stirred the bitter liquid absently, watching the swirl of cream spread like a slow-motion explosion. For once, I let myself be angry. Not the quiet, simmering resentment I had grown used to, but a raw, seething fury that I had long buried under layers of forced smiles and polite nods. My mind replayed Emma's words, that snide little giggle, the smug glint in Sarah's eyes, my parents' whispered chuckles. I pulled my phone from my pocket, the screen lighting up with a dozen missed messages. Family group chats, my mother's passive-aggressive texts, a few "Where did you go?" messages from Sarah. I swiped them away, opening my financial app again. The numbers stared back at me, the quiet proof of my silent support for people who had never really cared. It wasn't just the phone I had bought. I covered Sarah's mortgage for 3 months when her husband lost his job. I paid for Mom and Dad's medical insurance because they claimed they were struggling with retirement. Emma's private school tuition. That was me too for over a year. I had been their safety net, their unspoken guarantee, the invisible backbone of a family that had long since stopped seeing me as a person, only a wallet. I started scrolling through my transaction history, my fingers moving faster as the anger built. Monthly payments for utilities, Wi-Fi, groceries, even streaming services. Hundreds of dollars each month, thousands a year. I had become a one-man charity, funding the lives of people who wouldn't even blink if I disappeared tomorrow. I took another sip of coffee, the bitter taste grounding me. My thumb hovered over the disconnect buttons beside each account. I paused, the weight of the decision settling over me like a cold fog. Then, with a deep breath, I started tapping. One by one, I cut the cords, severing the financial ties that had bound me to a family that had taken me for granted for far too long. Electricity, water, internet, phone. I went through each bill, each automatic payment, each shared account, and shut them all down. Every tap felt like a small, satisfying crack in the chains that had held me for so long. I could almost hear the distant echoes of their confusion, the slow realization that their cozy little world was about to crumble. When I finally finished, I leaned back, staring at the ceiling tiles, each stained panel a silent witness to my quiet rebellion. I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted from my chest. I was done being their safety net, their silent savior. I would let them sink or swim on their own without my money, without my support, without my silent sacrifices. As I left the diner, the cool night air felt different, cleaner, somehow, like the first breath after a long storm. I slipped into my car, the engine rumbling to life as I pulled out of the parking lot, merging back onto the empty highway. I had cut the strings, and for the first time in years, I felt free. The silence didn't last long. It never does with them. I had barely made it through my front door when my phone started vibrating angrily in my pocket, the screen lighting up with my sister's name. I let it buzz, watched the screen flicker and then die, only for it to start again a moment later. I tossed my keys onto the counter, ignoring the flashing screen as I opened the fridge and grabbed a beer. The cold bottle felt good against my palm, a welcome contrast to the heat still simmering in my chest. I twisted the cap off, taking a long, bitter sip as the phone continued to buzz. When it finally stopped, I flipped it over, glancing at the string of missed calls and unread texts. Sarah had left a dozen messages, each one more frantic than the last. I thumbed through them, my lips curling into a grim smile. Sarah, what the hell, Mark? Why isn't the Wi-Fi working? Sarah, the power's out. Did you forget to pay the bill again? Mom, Mark, something's wrong with our insurance. They said it's been canceled. Sarah, Mark, call me. Sarah, this isn't funny? Dad, son, what's going on? Your mother's worried. I chuckled, the sound bitter and sharp in the quiet of my apartment. They hadn't even pieced it together yet. They still thought this was some kind of mistake, a glitch, something that could be fixed with a phone call to their ever-reliable, ever-giving son. The phone buzzed again, and this time it was my mother. I watched the screen for a moment, her picture flashing up. A slightly blurry family photo from last Christmas, everyone smiling except me. I hit decline. An hour later, they tried again. This time it was my father. I let it ring, the sound cutting through the silence like a distant alarm, a reminder of the ties I had just severed. When the calls finally stopped, the texts started again. Mom, Mark, we need to talk. This is serious. Sarah, answer your phone. Dad, don't ignore your family. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, the cool marble pressing into my spine as I sipped my beer, letting the notifications stack up, each one a small, satisfying victory. They were panicking. Good. I imagined them sitting in Sarah's living room, the same one I had walked out of just hours ago, the same room where they had laughed at me, dismissed me, taken me for granted. I pictured my mother wringing her hands, my father pacing Sarah, shouting into the phone, demanding answers. I could almost hear their voices. The rising panic, the slowly dawning realization that their golden goose had finally flown the coop. A part of me wanted to reply, to rub it in, to send a simple cutting message that would slice through their confusion like a blade. But I resisted. Let them squirm. Let them sweat. I had given them enough of my time, my money, my patience. They didn't deserve another second of my peace. The messages continued into the night, my phone buzzing every few minutes, a relentless digital reminder of the chaos I had left behind. I silenced it, tossing it onto the couch as I flipped on the TV, letting the white noise drown out their desperate attempts to reach me. By the time the sun crept over the horizon, painting the city in shades of pale gold and soft pink, the messages had slowed, the frantic calls reduced to a trickle. I finally picked up my phone, scrolling through the notifications, my thumb hovering over each one before finally hitting clear all. I set the phone down, staring out the window at the waking city, the streets slowly filling with cars and buses, the world moving on oblivious to the small act of rebellion I had just committed. I took another long sip of my beer, the cold liquid burning a path down my throat, and smiled. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them feel the sting of being cut off, the sharp, bitter taste of being ignored. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. A few days passed in blissful quiet. I went to work, ran my errands, even treated myself to a rare, uninterrupted walk through the park. The air felt cleaner, my steps lighter, as if each block I put between myself and my family also pushed away the weight they had piled onto my shoulders for years. But of course, peace never lasts long when you've cut off the lifelines of people used to living off your generosity. It started on a Thursday. I had just wrapped up a meeting at work, my mind still running through project deadlines and budget spreadsheets when I felt my phone vibrate. I ignored it at first, thinking it was just another spam email or a work notification, but it kept buzzing, a relentless, insistent pulse that made my pocket feel like a ticking time bomb. I ducked into the break room, leaning against the cold, sterile countertop as I pulled my phone out. I frowned. Dozens of missed calls, not just from my parents or Sarah, but from numbers I didn't recognize, local area codes mixed with the occasional unknown caller. My stomach twisted, a cold, uneasy feeling creeping over me. I swiped through the notifications, pausing on a voicemail from my father. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the play button before finally pressing it. His gruff, familiar voice crackling through the tiny speaker. Mark, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this has gone too far. Your mother is beside herself and Sarah's about to have a breakdown. You need to fix this now. Call me. I deleted the message without a second thought, the click of the delete button satisfying like the final nail in a long overdue coffin. I should have known that wouldn't be the end of it. That night, as I was heating up leftovers in my tiny apartment kitchen, there was a knock at my door. It was sharp, urgent, the kind of knock that makes your heart skip a beat even when you have nothing to hide. I took a deep breath, setting my plate on the counter before walking over to the door. I peered through the peephole, my heart sinking as I saw my sister Sarah standing on the other side. Her eyes were red, her hair a tangled mess, her jaw set in a hard line of barely controlled rage. "Mark, open the door." "I know you're in there," she hissed, her fists pounding against the thin wood. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the deadbolt. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her stand out there until she gave up and left. But a darker, more defiant part of me wanted to see the look on her face, to hear her try and justify the years of silent exploitation, to watch her squirm when she realized I wasn't the same pushover she had taken for granted for so long. I turned the lock, the deadbolt sliding back with a dull metallic thunk, and pulled the door open. Sarah's eyes widened, her chest heaving as she took a step back, caught off guard by my sudden appearance. For a brief, satisfying moment, I saw a flicker of doubt cross her face, a tiny crack in the mask of self-righteous anger she had worn for years. "What do you want, Sarah?" I said, leaning against the doorframe, my arms crossed over my chest, my expression carefully neutral. She opened her mouth, her lips trembling, but no words came out at first. She blinked rapidly, her eyes darting around the hallway as if searching for the right line in a script she hadn't bothered to memorize. "You can't just cut us off like this." She finally spat, her voice high, and strained the words tumbling out in a chaotic rush. "You can't just walk away from your family like we're nothing." I raised an eyebrow, fighting the urge to laugh. The sheer audacity of her words, the absolute unflinching entitlement was almost impressive. "I think you'll find that I can," I replied, my voice calm, almost bored. And I did. She blinked, her jaw dropping slightly as the full weight of my words sank in. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she snapped, her voice rising to a near shriek. "Mom and Dad are losing their minds. Emma's devastated, we're all struggling, and you're just, sitting up here pretending we don't exist." I leaned a little closer, lowering my voice until it was barely more than a whisper. "I'm not pretending, Sarah. You don't exist to me anymore." Her face twisted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, her fists clenching at her sides. For a moment, I thought she might actually hit me, the raw, desperate fury rolling off her in waves. But then just as quickly as it had flared, the fire in her eyes flickered and died, replaced by something colder, more calculating. "Fine," she said, her voice suddenly flat, her gaze hardening. "But don't come crawling back when you're the one who needs us." I smirked, leaning back against the doorframe, the cold metal pressing into my spine. "Don't worry, Sarah, I won't." I slammed the door in her face, the sound echoing through the empty hallway as her footsteps retreated, her angry muttering fading into the distance. I stood there for a moment, my heart still racing, the adrenaline singing in my veins. I had expected to feel guilty, maybe even a little shaken, but all I felt was a deep, bone-deep satisfaction, like a prisoner hearing the final click of a lock that had kept them chained for years. I took a deep breath, the air cool and sharp in my lungs, and turned back to my abandoned dinner, the steam rising in lazy spirals from the forgotten plate. Let them rage. Let them cry. Let them come to terms with the reality I had finally chosen for myself. I was done being their lifeline. A few days after Sarah's failed ambush at my apartment, the real pressure started. It was a slow, creeping thing at first. A few missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize, a couple of vaguely worded voicemails from my parents, and then like a dam, breaking a flood of messages and calls that I couldn't ignore even if I wanted to. My phone buzzed constantly, the battery draining faster than usual as my family burned through every possible way to reach me. Texts, emails, social media DMs, even LinkedIn, for God's sake. I was half expecting a carrier pigeon to show up on my balcony bearing a desperate note tied to its leg. I started getting messages from old family friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years, their words laced with thinly veiled accusations and clumsy attempts at guilt-tripping. Aunt Karen Mark, your mother is worried sick. You need to make things right. Uncle Tom family is everything, kid. Don't throw it away over a misunderstanding. Cousin Jake. Hey man, I don't know what's going on, but maybe you should talk to your parents. They're really upset. I even got a message from my old high school buddy Chris, someone I hadn't seen in over a decade. Chris dude, your mom called me. Said you're going through something. You good? I ignored them all, deleting the messages as soon as they came in, refusing to let them drag me back into the same twisted, suffocating cycle I had just escaped. I had cut them off for a reason, and I wasn't about to let a few guilt-soaked words pull me back into their grasp. But they didn't stop. If anything, my silence seemed to fuel their desperation, their attempts to drag me back into their chaotic orbit growing more frantic with each passing day. Then came the letters. It started with a plain white envelope slipped under my door, my mother's neat slanted handwriting instantly recognizable. I kicked it aside, leaving it to gather dust on the cold hardwood floor as I went about my day. A few days later, another one appeared, this time with my father's heavy, blocky scrawl, the ink pressed so hard into the paper that it nearly bled through to the back. I didn't bother opening it. By the end of the week, there were half a dozen envelopes scattered across my entryway. Each one a physical reminder of the life I had left behind. Each one a desperate plea for my attention, my money, my support. I ignored them all. And then just when I thought I had weathered the worst of it, the door knock started. It happened on a Sunday morning, the sun just barely peeking over the rooftops as I sat in my tiny kitchen sipping my coffee and flipping through the news on my phone. The sharp, insistent knock echoed through my apartment, cutting through the morning quiet like a gunshot. I froze the mug halfway to my lips, my heart pounding in my chest. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, letting whoever was on the other side pound their fists against the door until their knuckles bled. But then another knock came louder, more desperate, and I felt a familiar, unwelcome anger flare up in my chest. I slammed my mug down, the coffee sloshing over the rim and splashing onto the table, and stalked over to the door. I yanked it open without checking the peephole, my fists clenched, my jaw tight, my eyes blazing. My father stood on the other side, his face pale, his eyes bloodshot, his jaw clenched so tightly that the muscles in his neck stood out like cables. He looked like a man on the edge, the carefully constructed facade of control he had always prided himself on crumbling before my eyes. Mark, he said, his voice rough, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. We need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms over my chest, my face a carefully blank mask. No, Dad, I said, my voice low-cold. We really don't. His jaw twitched, his fists clenching at his sides, his entire body trembling with barely suppressed rage. Don't you dare shut me out like this, he snarled, his voice cracking with the weight of his desperation. We're family. You owe us. I felt a cold, bitter laugh bubble up in my chest, my lips curling into a humorless smirk. Oh, you, I repeated, my eyes narrowing, my voice dripping with contempt. I've given you more than you ever deserved. I've paid your bills, covered your debts, kept your lives afloat while you took me for granted. I don't owe you a damn thing. He took a step back, his face flushing a deep, angry red, his fists shaking as his control slipped, his carefully constructed world cracking at the seams. You're making a mistake, he spat, his eyes wild, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you've done. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, leaning in until our faces were inches apart, my voice dropping to a cold, venomous whisper. No, Dad, I said. My eyes locked onto his, my words cutting through the morning air like a blade. I'll never regret this. I'm free. I stepped back, my hand on the door, my heart racing as I took one last lingering look at the man who had taken so much from me for so long. Go home, I said, my voice flat, my eyes hard, and don't come back. I slammed the door in his face, the sound echoing through the tiny apartment, the final satisfying crack of a chain breaking. I leaned against the door for a moment, my chest heaving, my fists still clenched, my heart still racing. And then slowly I let the tension bleed out of my body, my shoulders relaxing, my breath coming easier. I had finally done it. I had finally broken free. After that final confrontation with my father, the silence that followed felt almost unnatural, like the calm after a long, violent storm. I half expected more knocks on my door, more frantic calls, more desperate letters, but they never came. It was as if my family had finally accepted that I was gone, that the lifeline they had clung to for years had been cut, leaving them to fend for themselves for the first time in decades. In the weeks that followed, I settled into a new routine, one that didn't involve constant phone calls, frantic texts, or surprise visits. I threw myself into my work, took long walks through the city, reconnected with old friends, and slowly started piecing together the life I had put on hold for so long. I even took up a few hobbies I had long forgotten: cooking, photography, hiking. Things that made me feel alive, things that reminded me that I was more than just a walking wallet, more than just the family's silent support system. One evening, as I was flipping through an old photo album, I came across a picture from years ago. A faded, yellowing print of my family sitting around a Christmas tree, the living room crowded with presents and flashing lights. I stared at the photo for a long time, my eyes tracing the familiar faces. The forced smiles, the carefully constructed image of a happy, united family. I remembered that night. I had just gotten a promotion at work, a big one, the kind that comes with a raise and a fancy new title. I had rushed home, excited to share the news, only to find my family too wrapped up in their own dramas to care. My sister had been in the middle of another fight with her husband, my parents arguing over something trivial, and my niece whining about a gift she didn't like. I had tried to tell them to share my moment of happiness, but my voice had been drowned out by the chaos, my small victory swallowed by the noise. I closed the album with a sigh, the cover snapping shut with a soft final thud. I stood there for a moment, my fingers resting on the worn, fraying edges of the old leather, and felt a strange, unexpected sense of peace wash over me. They had never seen me. Not really. Not as a person, not as someone with hopes, dreams, or struggles of his own. I had been a tool, a resource, a safety net. Nothing more. But that was over now. I tossed the album back onto the shelf, my fingers brushing the thin layer of dust that had already started to settle on the cover, and walked back to my kitchen. I poured myself a glass of wine, the rich red liquid swirling in the glass like the slow, steady pulse of a long, hidden heartbeat, and leaned against the counter, staring out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. I took a slow sip, letting the warmth spread through my chest, and smiled. For the first time in years, I felt truly, completely free. A few days later, I received a single short email from my mother. No subject line, just a few hastily typed sentences, the words jumbled and rushed, the tone a strange mix of anger and desperation. "Mom, Mark, we need to talk. Your father isn't doing well. Sarah is struggling. Emma is, well, you know how she is. We need you. Please call me." I read the message twice, my finger hovering over the reply button, my mind racing with 1,000 bitter, angry responses, each one sharper than the last. But then slowly, I shook my head, the anger bleeding away like a slow, fading bruise. I closed the email, blocking her address with a few quick taps of my thumb, and tossed my phone onto the couch. I had already said everything I needed to say, already made my choice, already drawn the line that I would never cross again. They had their chance. They had years of my life, years of my money, my patience, my support, my silent, unspoken sacrifices. They didn't deserve another second. I poured myself another glass of wine, the deep crimson liquid catching the light as it filled the glass, and took a slow, satisfying sip. I was done being their safety net. I was done being their silent savior. I was done. As I leaned back, the cool leather of the couch pressing into my back, I let my eyes drift shut, the steady hum of the city outside my window, filling the empty apartment with a low, comforting murmur. For the first time in years, I felt truly, completely at peace. Story 2. I revealed the $10,000 payment for their brand new luxury automobile as a gift during my brother's engagement. He chuckled. "If you would want an invitation, make it $20,000. I turned to him and said, "Start packing," after grinning and taking the money out. "You've got 30 days. Then, in front of 40 visitors, gave him a formal notice. "Come on, Daniel, I mean." In a voice that pierced through the party's low murmur, my brother Mike chuckled. "If you would want an invitation, make it $20,000. The room echoed with laughter as his fiancé's acquaintances exchanged pleased looks, and our cousins laughed. I could feel the familiar burn of embarrassment rising in my cheeks. I didn't flinch, though. I simply grinned the courteous grin I had been wearing for years. I had mastered the mask. Only a few seconds previously, I had made the gift announcement. $10,000 for their new luxury vehicle. It was a kind present that I had saved up because I wanted to be supportive. However, my brother Mike never realized the value of charity. He noticed leverage. Sarah, his fiancée, stood next to him and clutched his arm while letting out a nervous laugh. "Stop it, Mike. He's kidding," she muttered, but Mike's gaze did not correct her. He was serious. My dad held up his glass across the room. "Yes, Danny boy, yes. You're always trying to buy your way in. There are certain things that never change." His eyes were frigid, yet he smiled toothily. My mother pretended not to hear as she sipped her wine and kept her gaze on the table. She was an expert at that. Acting. The same weight that I had carried for years was pushing down on me. When Dad lost his job, I paid their bills and, without being asked, took care of my mom's medical expenditures. Give Mike tiny loans for education that he never planned to pay back. Always the idiot, the fixer, and the pocketbook. Not tonight, though. I forced my voice to remain calm as I cleared my throat. "Mike, you're correct. 10,000 is insufficient." After taking out my phone and tapping a few keys, I turned to face him and grinned. So I called it off. There was silence in the room. Mike's chuckle died in his throat as his smile wavered. Whispers began to spread like wildfire as his companions looked at one another. "What are you?" His voice lost its bluster as he stammered. "I canceled the purchase." I looked at the wall behind me where a slideshow of their engagement pictures was displayed on a big white screen. Tonight, however, it had a different function. My phone's screen illuminated when I tapped the button. There were text messages, Mike's messages. "I don't even want him here, you know. Mom is forcing me to invite him, though. Do not be concerned. We'll simply ignore him once more after he pays for the car. To be honest, he is pitiful. I would be sorry, but it would be free money, right?" The silence in the room had been broken. It was oppressive. Mike's face went pale. Sarah's hand slipped from his arm, her mouth half open in shock. The whispers turned into gasps and then silence again. "Daniel," my mother finally whispered, reaching out as if she could pull me away from the scene I was creating. But I didn't stop. Not this time. I stepped forward, my voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Mike, I'm done. I'm done being your wallet. I'm done being your fool." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a crisp white envelope. "This is your 30-day eviction notice. You and Sarah have until the end of the month to pack up and leave my apartment." Mike's eyes widened. You can't do this," he sputtered. "You can't just, I will." And with that, I placed the envelope on the table right next to their untouched champagne glasses. "Congratulations on your engagement," I said, letting the bitterness slip through. "But this is the last time you use me." And then I went out, leaving behind the astonished quiet of 40 witnesses, their perfect night shattered. I wish I could say the fallout from the engagement party ended that night, that I walked away and they stayed silent, ashamed, hiding from the reality I exposed. But people like my family, they don't disappear, they regroup, they were load. It started the next morning. My phone buzzed before I even got out of bed. A message from my mother. "How could you disgrace us like that?" "We are family, Daniel." Family, I disregarded it. 10 minutes later, another. "Your brother is heartbroken. Sarah's family is upset. You must express regret. Make this right." My phone was in a battle zone by the time I had prepared coffee. My father's missed calls and Mike's dozen texts, which ranged from ferocious to desperate. Everything was damaged by you. You're a little envious snake. You will never be forgiven by me. My lack of response just appeared to encourage them. They made it public when I didn't respond. My mother's Facebook page was the source of the initial photo. Blood is not what defines a family. It has to do with loyalty. Some folks must keep it in mind. The comments came pouring in. Support was added by distant relatives. Hearts were put by aunts and uncles. Just one person inquired about what transpired. Within minutes, that comment was removed. Mike's pals then joined the assault. Josh, his closest buddy, shared a story. Some people simply enjoy destroying the joy of others. Sad. Sarah, Mike's fiancée, wasn't silent either. She posted a picture of herself sobbing on Instagram with the statement, "Betrayal hurts the most when it comes from your own blood." I felt a slow, icy burn go through me as I gazed at the television. However, I didn't answer. Not quite yet. I received a call that evening. The number was recognizable, but I nearly didn't answer. Tom, Sarah's brother. Although it had been years since we had spoken, we had always been polite. Daniel was picked up by me. His voice was tight as he started. I have to know Mike's real story regarding what transpired. After some hesitation, I chose to tell the truth. I told him everything. The texts, the money. Mike had used me, made fun of me, and even boasted about it behind my back. Tom was quiet for a while. I was aware, he muttered. I was aware of it from the beginning. He has been covered by Sarah. I also discovered texts he sent to her bridesmaids. 2 of them have been the targets of his hookup attempts. My hand tightened around the phone as I sat down. Are you serious? Tom spit out. Dead serious. And what do you know? I'm tired of seeing her act foolish. I will tell her all about it. I didn't stop him. Why would I? However, I was surprised by how fast things spiraled. Sarah's Instagram was deleted the next day. A blank symbol took the place of her profile image. Her Facebook profile was deleted. In our family group chat as well. Anarchy. Mom. What did you do? Daniel? Sarah ended the engagement. You've gone too far, Dad. Your brother's life has been ruined by you. You're a complete phony Mike. I'll hold you accountable. I didn't ruin his life, though. Mike did. I also had evidence that I had finished acting. I took out my laptop and signed into the cloud account that I had connected to my apartment's security camera, the one where Sarah and Mike had been residing. Mike believed he was secure there. Finding what I needed didn't take long. Mike is shown laughing with 2 of his buddies in the living room in a tape that was taken a month ago. He was holding a bottle of whiskey. Daniel is far too trusting, dude. Mike slurred a little when he laughed. He believes that by covering all expenses, he is being the nice older brother, always taking our place. The man is pitiful. His companion chuckled. He won't learn about it. I take it you bought that watch with his rent money? Mike smiled. Even if he does know. He will simply give me a pointless lecture before repaying me. It always does. I got the video. Keep the backup. I then opened a different folder. My invoices, the expenses, the lease payments, and the little loans I had given Mike throughout the previous 3 years. In total, more than $40,000. I put everything together. Screenshots of money transactions and messages, the Mike mocking video. Retaliation wasn't the point. Truth was at issue. He was about to tear off his mask, not only to myself, but to everyone in his vicinity. Once more, my phone buzzed. Dad texted me again. Do you consider yourself a hero? Do you believe that you are superior to us? I gazed at it, and I grinned for the first time in years. I went to my profile on Facebook after opening it and started typing. Loyalty is not what family is about. Respect is at issue, and you have to earn respect. I then included the list of payments, the screenshots of Mike's texts, and the video of him laughing. After clicking post, I watched. The comments erupted in a matter of minutes, with friends messaging me and family members tagging one another. Some were astonished, while others were encouraging. Tom, Sarah's brother, liked the message and said, "You did the right thing. The truth has to be shown to them." However, my family became nuclear. Mom screamed into the phone and phoned. "How did you accomplish this? You could humiliate your own brother, but how Dad's text was nearly unintelligible. Now take that down or I'll make you regret it, I promise." Mike, too. He made another attempt to contact. Once more. He texted me one last time when I didn't respond. "Do you believe this is the end of it? I'll go as far as you can't imagine." I reclined in my seat, experiencing an odd feeling of serenity. They desired to engage in combat. They were unaware of my readiness. My phone rang just as I had finished reading my father's most recent angry text. For a brief moment, Mom's name appeared on the screen. I nearly didn't respond. However, I was compelled to hear her voice in order to determine whether she was still acting, continuing to cover for them. "Daniel," she said, her voice a little lower than normal. "Would you please let us talk? Only we speak." I reclined, experiencing the well-known burden of disappointment. What is it about how can I be a traitor? How I ruined Mike's idyllic existence. "No," she said softly, nearly two. "Not in that manner. I'd rather not fight. Please, I attend a yoga class there, plus there's a little cafe. Can we meet later?" "Only to converse." After hesitating, an odd serenity descended upon me. This could have been it. The last discussion. All right, I'll be present. The yoga studio was a spotless haven of quiet affirmations and glass walls. Through the glass, I observed my mother striking slow, purposeful poses. She had a calm look, as though everything in the world was fine. However, the truth buzzed in my pocket. The video of Mike making fun of me was among the evidence that filled my phone. The audio of my father's threats, the messages in which he boasted about exploiting me and his schemes to cheat on Sarah. Mom grinned and dabbed at her forehead with a towel as she eventually left. "I appreciate you coming." We strolled to the Connected Cafe, a small, minimalistic area with soothing background music and hanging plants. A green smoothie was what she requested. I just drank black coffee. "Daniel, I'm happy you're here." Her voice was soft, almost begging, as she began. "All I want is for us to comprehend one another. I'd like to make this right." "Make this right?" I bent over. "How can something that has always been broken be fixed?" "Please," she muttered. "Don't act this way. Your sibling, he's having trouble. He is in pain. Additionally, your father is upset because I'm no longer a puppet. I cut you off. Is that the point of this? Do you want me to say I'm sorry to clean up the disaster he created?" Her face went a little white. "Daniel, it's not about sides. It has to do with family." "Family," I laughed resentfully. "The same family who made fun of me, took advantage of me, and deceived me. The same family that, as soon as I defended myself, attempted to turn everyone against me." "Please, Daniel." Her voice faltered. "I'm attempting to find harmony." Peace broke as the cafe door suddenly flung open. Mike entered with a swagger as if he still believed he was in charge. Behind him, Dad. His expression was the same old scowl, the one that promised problems every time. Mom's eyes got big. "Mom, you two weren't meant to rescue it." Mike pulled out a chair with a snarl. We decided that some honesty was needed in this brief conversation. "Yes," Dad snarled and sat down beside me. "Danny, let's get things straight. You have sufficiently shamed this family." I looked at my mother. Panic had taken the place of her calm mask. "What now? Be quiet." Mike grinned. "Mr. Truth Teller, hurry up. Have more tales to tell. Or did your brief moment of stardom come to an end?" I take a seat with my coffee. Despite the burn, I'm remaining composed. Tales such as the one in which you boasted about taking advantage of me were the ones you informed Sarah's pals about. She didn't understand what you were doing since she was too dim. Mike's self-satisfied smile wavered, but he remained firm. "Quit talking. Do you think anyone is paying attention?" Who believes me doesn't matter to me, I spoke in a harsh yet quiet voice. What is true is all that matters to me. Is that correct? Dad snarled as he leaned in. You are actually a self-centered young brat who betrayed his own family. Do you believe that you are superior to us? I believe I've had enough of your games. Games? Mike leaned back and laughed. You've always been a joke, dude. An impoverished little loser attempting to get respect. I gave a joking smile. The enormous TV screen in the cafe, which is often used for fitness classes, flared to life when I took out my phone and touched a few keys. The speakers blared Mike's voice. Daniel is so innocent all the time. He believes he belongs by assisting us. To be honest, it's disappointing. There was silence in the cafe. People turned. Mom put her hand to her lips. The video went on screen. Mike is laughing with his pals. Drinking at my flat. Sarah, too. She is an ignorant idiot. In fact, she believes that I genuinely care about her. I already have 2 of her bridesmaids lined up, dude. Mike moved closer, his face flushed with rage, but I maintained my composure. Keep your hands off me. Switch it off. His voice cracked as he yelled, but I chose to ignore him. I displayed the following file screenshots of his texts, the ones in which he called me a walking wallet, and made fun of the money I used to pay for his bills, rent, and car. Falsehoods. He let out a yell. Did you modify those? This was not edited by me. I changed to the audio version. Through the speakers came the crackling voice of my father. He is frail. If you put enough pressure on him, he will comply. He always does. That person's face became white. Were you filming me? No, I wasn't. However, you're too dim to understand how phones operate. With tears in her eyes, Mom extended her hand. Please, Daniel. Stop, please. I wasn't finished, though. I turned to Mike. You believe you're smart, a coward who is incapable of adhering to his own statements. I looked at my father. How about you? Control was all that ever mattered to you. Okay, it's finished. I then turned to face Mom. How about you? You never defended me. Not once. With tears in her eyes, she said, Stop it. Stop, please. However, it was too late. The facts were out. Mike's face contorted with anger. This is something you'll regret. You're really self-centered. You just consider yourself. The manager moved in between Mike and me as he attempted to approach. He spoke louder. Sorry, sir, but I must ask you to depart. Leave me alone. The manager tightened his hold on Mike as he yelled. Dad's knees trembled as he attempted to stand. Daniel, this isn't how you handle your family. I looked at him and answered, no. When family gets poisoned, you treat them just like this. I reached for my coat, repositioning the phone in my pocket. I didn't turn around. Not to their surprise, not because they were angry, not after the commotion I caused when the door closed behind me. The chilly air struck my face, but I was able to breathe for the first time in years. When I got home, the stillness seemed comforting. No guilt-tripping texts, no irate voices, only the rain rapping on my window and the soft hum of my refrigerator. As I waited for the inevitable, I placed my phone on the counter. It took very little time. My phone sprang to life and began to vibrate frantically. Dad first. Daniel, you have destroyed this family. Then this is your fault. Mom, please, Daniel. He is your sibling. Are you unable to let it go? And lastly, Mike. You always hide behind other people. Do you believe this is the end of it? You will remember this. I sipped my chilly coffee while leaning back. All I could feel was a weird calmness. This was not the end of it. They were correct. No, it wasn't. However, it would happen shortly. I took out my laptop, opened the folder, my war chest text messages, audio recordings, bank transactions, and, of course, the video of Mike bragging that I was his personal ATM. I was aware of my obligations. In less than an hour, I was seated across from Sarah, a former college classmate who is currently a prosperous lawyer. She turned the pages of the evidence. Her face fluctuated between inquisitiveness, surprise, and virtuous rage. Daniel, this is unquestionable. We have the right to sue them for unjust enrichment and fraud. Excellent. With a calm voice, I answered, I want my money back. They were struck like a sledgehammer by the lawsuit. Mom called first, her voice desperate. Please, Daniel, this is not possible. We are related. No, we don't steal from one another. We're not family. I answered and hung up. Dad then attempted his usual strategy. Fear. Do you now consider yourself a tough guy bringing a lawsuit against your own blood? You will be laughed out of the room by the judge. He won't. Because you're going to lose, I said. Mike may also. Tried haggling. All okay, all right. I'll reimburse you. Please, just put the case aside. Repay me. I chuckled. With what? The money you squandered on expensive watches or an unaffordable automobile. All I needed to hear in the courtroom was the stillness on the line. It was a sledgehammer of truth. My attorney explained everything. I had paid for Mike's rent, his fancy automobile, and the several loans that he never paid back. On the screen was a video of Mike boasting to his pals about how he was taking advantage of me. Mike moved in his seat uneasily. He had a pallid face. In the gallery, Mom wiped away her tears with a tissue. Dad looked straight ahead. He tightened his jaw. Sarah rebutted Mike's attorney's claim that I had voluntarily assisted my brother. Assisting a relative is one thing. Another is being duped, misled, and cheated out of money. This isn't helpful. This is deception. When I played the audio tape of Dad's voice, it was the last straw. If you put enough pressure on him, he will comply. He always does. The judge's face grew stern. The gavel dropped. Michael Connor is ordered to pay Daniel Connor $43,000 in full plus damages for mental anguish after I decide in favor of the plaintiff. The court further concludes that Mr. Connor's acts constituted a blatant breach of trust. Mike's expression froze. Like a fish struggling to breathe, his mouth opened and closed. Dad clutched the edge of the seat, his knuckles whitened. I felt the burden leave my chest as I got to my feet. I had freedom. The consequences were immediate. Mike made an effort to get in touch with me and ask me to make a deal. He agreed to do the necessary repairs and installments. He was blocked by me. In his angry message, Dad called me a snake, a traitor, and a shame to the family. Without hearing the conclusion, I erased it. Mom came crying and hammering at my door. Please, Daniel, don't do this, please. We can have a conversation. This is something we can resolve. Her voice was muted but frantic. As I gazed at her through the peephole, I immediately turned to go. The family attempted to turn against me. A couple cousins sent me ambiguous texts telling me to consider what I'm doing. I choose to disregard them. Then I learned that Mike had to sell his expensive automobile, which his fiancée and Sarah's family had purchased in order to pay off a portion of the debt. Dad attempted to assist by taking money out of his retirement account, but it was insufficient. They even attempted to ask the court to lower the payments by claiming financial hardship. My attorney disproved their assertions. While you made fun of your son, he paid for your way of life. It's time to reimburse him. A month later, the first money appeared in my account, an impersonal transfer that is mechanized. However, each dollar served as a reminder of what I had gained back rather than what I had lost. The money was not wasted. I paid off the remaining balance on my college debts, made investments for the future, bought a new, efficient car to replace my old, beaten one, joined a gym, and put myself first. The stillness, however, was the greatest part. No more frantic phone calls, no more texts that make you feel guilty, no more acting like I was the issue. I saw Mike's fiancée, Sarah, at a cafe one day. She waved me over with a smile. I apologize, she replied plainly. Her eyes are sad but kind. You don't have to apologize to me, I said. We spoke for a long time. I found out that she had permanently split from Mike, continued living her life. I informed her that I was following suit. However, a silent pain began to settle in my chest as I left. Gaining victory did not feel like a win. I felt as though I was losing a piece of myself. I had put a lot of effort into protecting Perhaps I wasn't only battling them, I was struggling with my loneliness phobia. I started a fresh document on my laptop that evening as I was relaxing in my peaceful, comfortable apartment. I composed a letter. To me, not to others. You are not a wallet, Daniel. You are not a target for abuse. They are not saved by you. You are who you are. And at last, you were free. I kept it, grinned, and shut down the laptop. In a calming pattern, the rain drummed against the glass. However, there was no storm this time. It was only a calm, quiet rain.